On today's episode, we're going to show you how to use artificial intelligence to create your very own frameworks and intellectual property for your consulting business.
I will never be the same, 'cause that's what it takes.
Welcome to Your Consulting Business Podcast. My name is Russell Pearson, and this is episode 154. Today, we're going to close the gap between those people who don't have intellectual property and are really just either winging it or using someone else's IP, to those who have the unique selling proposition of really taking their experience and their expertise and developing it into something useful and valuable for a client market. Now, we're going to close that with artificial intelligence. I'm going to show you a product that we use to actually create frameworks, procedures, and assessments that enable you to not only have a product you can take to market, but actually have a system for helping clients get from where they are to where you want them to be. So let's talk about the areas we're going to cover today. First off, we want to make sure that you're coming to this situation with some expertise. Now, that expertise doesn't mean it has to be university-based learning. In fact, I don't find that university-based learning is as valuable as practical on-the-job type learning. And so if you're coming to this scenario with expertise that's been developed from experience, I think that's absolutely the place to come from and very, very useful. If you're coming with university education, you may have enough, but I would love to have heard that you've actually applied it for a number of years so you can see how it works in practice. Because at the end of the day, what our expertise helps us do is understand how we're taking someone from here to there. There's a process to do that. Now, you might not even know what the process is just yet, but you know that there is a place that people are and a place that they want to get to. And from time to time, you've been able to get them from here to there. Now, if you are a consultant who's been running for any longer period of time, hopefully you've been doing that regularly because that means you've been successful. And so your expertise is really about that when I'm talking about it today. How do we get someone from where they are to where they want to be, and how do we do that consistently? And that's where process and framework comes in, because the next one is framework. We want to look at frameworks from a point of a framework tells us how to achieve a certain thing. Now, on one side, it's a point of reference. So within the context of your client, there is a way to achieve a certain thing. You have a point of view which you can bring to that framework. So you go, based off my point of view and my experience and my expertise, this is the best way, I believe, to go from here to there. All right, so frameworks are very useful, and we'll discuss them as well. Models. These are models of success. So this is an example of how you go from one thing to the next. And models of excellence are a great way to have someone see what they need to become to achieve a certain outcome. Now, the models we're going to discuss today are going to be maturity models, and I'll get more into detail on that. But a maturity model is based off immature to mature. So again, along that timeline, what are the stages that we can identify? So it's almost like archetypal stages. What does someone who is immature in your expertise look like? What is someone who's taken one step in between? Maybe someone who's in the middle stage, maybe someone who's moving towards mature, and then someone who is finally mature in your area of expertise. What does that look like? We're going to show you how to use artificial intelligence to create a maturity model today. And then finally, there are ways of doing diagnostics, which is incredibly useful, especially in the sales position when we're actually working with engaging someone to work with us, because we want to come from that position of advisory. So diagnosing the problem rather than just have them tell us what they want us to do is a much more effective strategy. And also in the assessment inside the organization, it's a very valuable process, especially if you've got a large organization. Maybe you've got 1,000, 2,000 people that we want to sort of get their point of view on a situation. Well, the artificial intelligence I'm going to show you today is going to enable you to go out to a large organization just in one step and be able to receive all that information back and get an automated report so that you can do some really strong diagnostics. So we're going to talk about your expertise, which will come from experience, as well as your understanding and learnings. We'll talk about frameworks. We'll talk about a model, in particular the maturity model, and then we will get into the diagnostics. So when it comes to expertise, there's a couple of things that I just want you to look at. Now, you're going to bring your expertise to the artificial intelligence product. You're going to upload some documentation, and from that, it can read it and create your maturity framework. So really, we want to understand what is it that you know, what is your special knowledge to get someone from here to there. And so what I like to do is do the fishing training experiment. So let's pretend that you and I are starting a fishing training business, right? Now, that might not be the thing that you've always wanted to do, but in this scenario, that's what we're going to do, right? And so people that are at a point where they don't know how to do fishing effectively, and we want to get them to a point where they are very good at fishing. And they'll move through a process to get there. Now, there's all sorts of reasons, and this is where a framework, which I'll talk about in just a moment, will come in. There'll be lots of reasons why people want to come to a point where they learn how to start fishing. One of them could be, you know, they used to do fishing as a child and they missed that and they want to get back to it, right? So it's like a new hobby or a refreshed hobby. Another one was maybe the same situation happened, but this time they want to teach their children. All right, so it's a different reason to come to it. These are all symptoms. These are reasons why people want to do things. And then finally, they might just want to be able to get away from people and have some time on their own, and they want to create a hobby that's all about getting into nature and getting away from individual people. Now, I'm not saying that's me, but, you know, some people like to get away from the riffraff. So there's all sorts of reasons why they come in. Now, that's not the process we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about, all right, they come to us, they've got a problem, they want to get to an outcome. So they don't know how to fish, they do know how to fish. Now, there are some steps to get them there. Now, there are a bunch of different ways that we can look at it, but again, we're doing fishing training, so this is the context that we're coming into. The first step we might want to teach them is what are the different types of fish? Okay, there's all sorts of different types of fish out there. What are the different types? So at least they know when they catch a fish, what type of fish it is it legal to catch, all those sort of things. Now, I want you to apply this as a metaphor, right? So consulting is fishing, yeah? Apply this to your own expertise. What is the first step that people will need to know before they can actually achieve the outcome? The next one, we might want to talk about what is the different bait that we want to use. There'll be all sorts of different bait that we can use for the fishing. And then next after that, we might want to look at where can we find these fish? You know, there are all sorts of different places. Maybe there's locations that people can find them. Again, think about your own expertise and where we've got to move people through. Then we might want to look at the different equipment that's involved in fishing. We want to look at the techniques that are involved in using that equipment. And then finally, what do you do after? What do you do once you catch a fish? You know, there's a whole process for whether you want to process the fish, whether you want to throw it back, all those different options. So this is an example of expertise, taking someone from here to there. And a lot of people have not visualized their own process, right? Their own journey that they will take with a client. So my recommendation is to do this process where you visualize it, and then under each of these steps, just say what it is. You know, what does that look like for you in your business? And then you've got some really solid documentation. Now, just as a little side note, if you did want to ever niche in this, let's say that you've got broad expertise, taking someone from here to there, and you look into this process map and you go, actually, I really like the technology or the techniques, of teaching these people how to use the equipment. I really like that. And so you could, if you wanted to, step down and actually niche your expertise into just people who don't know how to use the equipment and want to learn how to use the equipment. And then you've got an entire another process journey that you can create for them. So this is a really useful process for you to understand what are the steps. And there's some really valuable pieces in here. Number one, about niching into the type of work you want to do, but also to identify what are the other ways that you can productize certain elements within the business, even though you're taking someone on a journey. You might not be productizing the whole journey, but you may be productizing certain elements of it. So this is the artificial intelligence. It's called the Axe, and this is the one I recommend to use for those people who are wanting to create some productized offers within their consulting practice. It'll enable you to create a maturity model which you can take people through manually or actually in an automated fashion by using some of the assessment tools that allow you to create some assessment tools as well, and do a much deeper diagnostic for large organizations. To take what we've already got from our expertise, what we do is we actually go and create what's called a knowledge book. Now, the knowledge book itself is going to be where we put all our intellectual property. Now, That will be things like what we just did with the fishing training. It'll be any documented processes that we've created. It'll be any information on writing about the things that we already know. So we can bring all of our documents here and we can create what's called a K-book, which is a knowledge book. So new knowledge book. And this is going to be a way for us to identify not only what we've already got working for us, but bringing it together into one place. So we're kind of creating a brain, an artificial intelligent brain, which is using our perspective. And so what we need to do is just upload the files that you want to use and give it a summary so that it knows what context to apply it into. And it will basically give you an artificial intelligent brain, which we can then use to make all the rest of the stuff. So this is how we're creating a bit of a framework. This is a part of bringing our knowledge together in one place. Once we've got that, we can move on to the maturity model. Now, one of the things that we do in the Forge and the Guild, if you don't know what they are business programs that I run, is we create some real customized frameworks. We call it the expert framework. And if you take the expert framework from our program and put it into this, it's even better. So just letting you know that exists, but you don't necessarily need it to get started. So once you've got a knowledge book all created, then we can actually go on to a maturity model. Now, creating maturity model just means that you would select the knowledge book that you want to actually use, and then you would go from there. This is an example of one that I've created already, so I'm going to select that. And you'll see that basically a maturity framework takes someone from a level, and we can have multiple levels. In this scenario, we've got 5 levels, where they are fairly immature in their process, and when we take them to a mature version of what we want. So in other words, their current scenario, they get to assess where they are on this spectrum. And then from there, how do they want to go to a next stage? Now, this process might take years for someone to go from, in this scenario, expert for hire, through to a leveraged specialist. And they might not even want to get to that leveraged specialist part. Maybe they just want to get to strategic authority, right? But we have some steps for them. Now, in this scenario, in this framework that I've created, and then the maturity model off the back of it, I've said that these are the areas that are going to be important. Adaptable delivery, automation in that, the expert framework, which is what I talked about before, your ability to have agility in your offers, have growth systems, market focus. So all of these are all the different areas that you would need to actually build a successful consulting practice. And what we've done is we assess the maturity level for each of those elements, and we can work through a process to get to highly mature in each. It's kind of like a rubric that you might have had at school. This is going to be the same sort of information. Now, you can take this and use it quite manually to help someone plan their next steps and their process. Or you can use it to do what I'm going to show you to do next. By the way, for those people who are wanting someone to walk them through the process to help them build a maturity framework and then actually create the assessments, we are actually doing a thing until the end of the calendar year where we're going to take a handful of new people through, not only to show them how to build out this productized model for their business, but then show them how to take it to market. So if you're interested to know more about that, there's an expression of interest below. Fill that out and we will have a quick discussion about whether it would be right for you. There are a number of other features inside this program that are incredibly useful, including it works as a mini CRM. It actually has a process for bringing people to a sale. But the thing I want to show you now that we've built a maturity model, what can you do with that? Well, there's a couple of different types of assessments you can create that enable you to close sales, but also then use this as a product once you're in with an organization. So these one-to-one assessments, which is this one here, these are really built for the person to assess where they are along that spectrum of the maturity model. And so using that, we can help someone identify the gaps within their business, and then from there, we can actually work out or design an engagement with them. Once we're in an organization, we can do a group assessment, which enables us to send one to many, and we can get a lot of people to fill in this type of assessment, which will give us all the information we need for reporting and for reviews. But today, I'm going to show you the individual assessment. So I'm going to show you this one here. We'll look at the a simplified version of what I've done with the maturity model that we had from before. Basically, we've asked it to create an assessment. The artificial intelligence, the AXE, has created this assessment for us. And what it did is it created a series of questions which I then look at to say whether I'm happy with them. Now, there are a bunch of different ways you can do the questions. You can do linear scale, you can do multiple choice, you can do open questions, you can do yes or no. There's many different ways to do it. But in here, you can see that I've got 3 questions for each of these levels. So outcome expertise being a category, client flow being a category, and authority brand being a category. And then I've got these different ways of asking the question. So in this scenario, we only have 9 questions in the assessment, but the artificial intelligence created them all for us. And by doing that, it has done a large part of the heavy lifting, and we can also go back and adjust those questions before we launch. So before we go publishing this out, we can absolutely go and change anything we like, and we can customize it the way we like. But then we would take it to market, and I'll quickly show you about how it looks like once you've published it. And so here's the assessment in its basic form out there on the web, and you can do all sorts of customization with it. So for instance, there's this geometric image there. We can replace that image with an image that actually represents our business. Maybe it's an image of yourself, maybe it's a business of clients getting a result, whatever you like. Yes, it says powered by the axe, but it also has my logo, and I can adjust my logo, and I can adjust the text. I can also put a starter video on here. There's all sorts of things that we can do. But when we click it, the process is pretty simple. So we go in here, people enter their address. So we'll say test@russellpearson.com, just as an example. My name is Russell 2Ls Pearson. And then once we've done that, then they're actually into the question. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how consistently do you deliver client results using structured methods and automation? Okay, so we've got these answers that they can click through and they can select from. Then from there, we actually have an artificial intelligence on the assistant on the side, which it can answer questions for those participants. And you can change this so that you don't have that AI there if you don't want it. It's just a really cool feature. In fact, inside the axe, there is an AI assistant working with you through the entire process to ensure that if you've got questions through the process, or if you want hints, or want a better way of writing a question, for instance, you can ask the axe the question, and it can give you some suggestions. Like all artificial intelligence, the way you work it really defines the results that you get, but I just wanted you to know that it's all part of the process. I'm just going to grab some nonsense here. So define your methods, I guess, right? It's going to apply my answers to the maturity framework. I'm going to go high on this one. We'll just click that, go a little high on that too. I want to show you describe how you generate new clients. So we'll say referral. Now, I don't I get referrals, great, but I don't focus on referrals, but that's a whole different topic. We'll go here, click this one, we'll just click some randomness. Okay, so my brand narrative is I am the business blacksmith. All right, that's if I can spell blacksmith, that's what I am. Completing the assessment, so then it talks. In fact, I'm standing over the top, but basically there is a complete assessment. Please wait while we assess your response. And it just takes a couple of moments, and then it gives a score. Now, what I like about this is it doesn't give the full report. You can actually apply a button that they can click and they can download the report, or people can actually reach out to you to actually get the report. And I think that's probably the best process when using this as a sales process, as a sales diagnostic. But this gives them an overview of what's going on. And so these are little elements from my maturity model just to give them a sense of what each of these steps means about where they're actually sitting. And so there's outcome expertise, there's the authority brand, there's the client flow, and it gives this visual of that so that they get a sense of how they scored. So it's quite a nice packaged little model. You don't have to go and build it. You don't have to find a lot of software. It's all contained in one place, which is why I recommend the Axe. I found that it's being custom made for consultants like us. And so if you're interested in doing that, then you can absolutely reach out to me, and I will give you the link so that you can go and apply. Or you can just go to theaxe.ai. You can absolutely get public access, but there are ways for you to get private access with me, which means that you can get some better rates. But just want to let you know that that's possible. So that's how you can package your expertise into some real intellectual property, and how you can create not only knowledge bank of your expertise, information, and experience, but also a place where you can productize and then offer this as a service for people. So the way I recommend doing it is actually to go and allow people to engage with you in some way where you will probably have a chat with them. You'll take them through to a next step where we'll do a self-diagnostic, and that's using the using the self-assessment that they, let's see if that actually, there we are, make it prettier. Using the axe, we'll then take them through basically a process, which is all this can be paid. I just want to make that point. This is not all free, but this process is going to be working through the maturity model to take them from where they are to where they want to be. So we've got to identify where they are, where they want to be in the process, and we use the maturity model for that. So I'll write maturity. Okay, and then from there we can also do a review that allows us to assess how they've come or how they've gone. Now, each of those places, you can obviously do a pre-call that is paid, but that's completely up to you whether you do it free or not. But you're certainly getting dollars from each of these places. And in fact, for many people who have been a contractor in the past, right, and you've been just doing the work that's been handed to you, this is an incredibly powerful process to enable you to transform from a contractor to an actual consultant, because you'll have a process that you can work people through, and it's going to be based off your own experience and your own expertise. So I recommend everybody have something like this, if not this specific version of it through the axe that I'm recommending, because it enables you to have real strength in setting yourself up to be not only a specialist, but a person who facilitates change. And so that's what this whole process does, is it shows people how to visualize a way to facilitate change. And so I recommend that every modern consultant has a setup like this in their practice. So if you found this video valuable, I'd love you to hit the like button, because then it shares it with other consultants who are just like you. If you've got any questions, make sure you put them in the comments below. We really appreciate those comments. We like to have conversations with the people who are watching these videos. And if you want to get more of these videos, hit the subscribe button and you'll get notified, especially if you ring the bell, when the next video becomes available. And this is episode 154, which means that there is 153 other episodes that we've already recorded on the channel, and you can go back and watch them too. If you'd like us to take you through the process to actually show you how to use this software, how to implement it in your business, and how to take it to market, you can absolutely go and fill in the expression of interest form, and we will get back to you with the details. My name is Russell Pearson. Until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.